As-salaamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah wa salatu wassalaam ala rasulillah. So this is part 2 of how to memorize the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Qur'an. In the first part we talked about some of the actions of the heart with regards to memorizing the Qur'an. In this video we're going to be talking about, first of all, how you actually go about memorizing the Qur'an, and second of all, how you review the verses that you have already memorized. So first of all, how you memorize the Qur'an, I'm going to mention 5 points. The first most important point is that you need to find a teacher. Someone who knows how to recite the Qur'an properly, who can sit with you face to face and help you in your memorization. It doesn't necessarily have to be an imam or sheikh of the masjid. It could be just a brother or sister who knows how to recite the Qur'an properly. They have learned the Qur'an. The point is that you need to find someone who can sit with you and help you in your memorization. If you absolutely cannot find anyone, I know there are online Qur'an tutors, which still inshallah would be better than trying to memorize on your own. The second point would be that you need to choose a daily amount that you want to try to memorize. So this is your daily goal for memorization. That could be half a page, it could be more than that, it could be less than that, depending on your own level and ability. So you need to choose a daily amount that you want to try to memorize. The third point is that you would sit with your teacher, and for beginner students, most likely you would first listen to your teacher reciting the verses, each verse by verse, and you would repeat after them. Once you know how to recite the verses properly, then your teacher would listen to you reciting and point out any mistakes that you have. And then the fourth point, basically it's up to you now to go and memorize these verses. And there's basically 2 ways you could go about doing that, and it just depends on what works best for you. What some people like to do when let's say they're trying to memorize half a page, is that they would memorize, they would repeat one verse at a time. They would keep repeating that same verse until they had memorized it, and then they would go on to the second verse and keep repeating that one until they memorized it, and so on for the third and the fourth. The other way some people like to do, again if they're trying to memorize, let's say half a page, is just to repeat the whole amount, to repeat that half a page again and again until it's firmly, established in their mind. So Allahu Alam, basically whatever works best for you, those are 2 ways you can do it. The 5th point would be that the next time you sit with your teacher, the next day or whatever, you would recite the verses you memorized back to them. They would listen to your recitation and point out any mistakes that you have. And the important thing is not to move on and trying to memorize other verses until these ones have been memorized perfectly, or have been memorized very well. Okay? So these 5 points with regards to memorizing. First of all, try to find yourself a teacher who knows how to recite the Qur'an. Number 2, choose a daily goal or a daily amount that you can easily memorize, and don't go beyond that. Number 3, you would listen to your teacher reciting, and then your teacher would listen to you and make sure that you are reciting these verses properly before you go and try to memorize them. Number 4, you sit and repeat the verses until they're firmly established in your mind and in your heart. So we mentioned that could either be by reciting one verse at a time until you memorized it, then moving on to the next, and so on. Or it could be reciting the whole amount of verses, like 2, 3, 4 verses, half a page, whatever that you're trying to memorize, to recite it again and again until you've memorized it, whatever works best for you. And the 5th point we mentioned is that the next time you sit with your teacher, you would recite the verses that you memorized back to them. They would listen and make sure that it's perfect before moving on. Okay, and the second thing we'll talk about now is how to review the Qur'an verses that you have memorized. And there are 2 different kinds of review that you need to do. The first one is reviewing your most recently memorized verses. So this is called your RMV, your recently memorized verses. So what that means is that you review the most recent 5 pages that you have memorized. So the most recent 5 pages, you would review those without looking at the book, without looking at the mushaf, to make sure that you have memorized them properly. If you have, then you can continue memorizing the next part. If you haven't, then you don't continue memorizing until these 5 pages are solid. The second type of review is what is called a general review, where you need to make a plan to review all of the Qur'an you have memorized up to that point. For example, if you have memorized 10 juz, 10 parts of the Qur'an, you would make a plan for reviewing every day, let's say 1 juz or a half a juz. The point is that you have a daily amount that you want to review so that you can complete reviewing all of the Qur'an you know in, let's say, 1 week or 10 days. It shouldn't be more than 2 weeks, I would say at the most. So for those who have memorized a lot of Qur'an, half the Qur'an, maybe they would review 1.5 juz every day, or even 2 juz every day. Those who have memorized less, they might review half a juz every day, or 1 juz every day. Basically, whatever works best for you. But the point is that these two kind of review, the RMV, the most recently memorized 5 pages, and the second kind of review is a general review of everything you have memorized up to that point. So you make a plan for memorizing or for reviewing, let's say, half a juz or 1 juz every day until you've completed reviewing everything that you've memorized up to that point. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this helpful and beneficial for myself and for everyone else. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.